Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, as he does every other Thursday, straight from Central Florida, just north, I believe, of the Mickey Mouse house, Mike Piwowarski. Mike, how's it going today, man?
Not too bad, Paul. Not too bad, and having a good time here. I've been in the Mouse House in a while, but I am familiar with its location quite well.
Sure,
So.
sure. um, we were we're coming in. We're coming out an hour later than we normally do, and we were discussing pre-show as we were getting ready to get things going. You got an interesting text message here a little bit ago.
So I had my earbud in, and anybody that's got an Apple product, I had the earbud in, and my phone was off on the charger, and I got a text, and it just reads the text to you. It doesn't say who it's from. It just reads the text to you, and the text came in, and it said, 9 minutes to live. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Jesus. Sorry. So and obviously it meant 9 minutes to live, but it didn't know the context. So for a moment, I had a moment of panic that I had only 9 minutes left.
Exactly. Did you get the bucket list completed in those 9 minutes?
It was one of those like, you know what? I got 9 minutes. I'm just gonna continue to work on this cigar and enjoy it.
There you go. There you go. Maybe empty a little bit out of the bottles behind you.
Yeah. Go for the big bottle on the top. You know, let's break out the Johnny Walker Blue.
There you go. All right. Let's see here. Let me get social up here. And I want to remind everybody, if you are watching us live on the Polite Society Podcast Facebook or YouTube pages, you can comment directly on those videos. If you're catching us anywhere else in a Facebook group, on Getter, on Rumble, on OpsLens, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. We'll get those right away as well and get your comment on the air. Mike, I want to start. Get rid of my smoke here. I want to start right away. The DOJ has an interesting. Well, they're trying to fight people with marijuana from getting that use marijuana medically or casually from purchasing firearms, and they've got a really unique analogy. I found this one on Reason.com. They write every state prohibits the reasoning from the DOJ is that every state prohibits driving while intoxicated, recognize that alcohol use impairs the ability to safely operate a motor vehicle, and increases the potentially lethal accidents. Using a cell phone also impairs the ability to safely operate a vehicle and increases the use of potentially lethal accidents. It therefore makes sense to prohibit cell phone users from owning cars. That faulty syllogism bears more than a passing resemblance to the Biden administration's defense of the federal law that makes it a felony for cannabis consumers to possess firearms. We're going to go ahead and leave it there. But yeah, the DOJ is fighting, saying, look, these people could go off the deep end. Marijuana users, okay. But because they use marijuana, they should not be able to own a firearm. And I think Reason does a great job of drawing the parallel there.
Yeah. Reason they do come up with some really good reasons, right? It's amazing that the federal government, Department of Justice, this Biden administration, they're all for the use of marijuana and prescriptions for marijuana, whatever it happens to be in your state, unless of course there's a firearm involved. And if once the word firearm comes in, they're pulling reasons out of their backside to why you can't have a firearm. The only thing that's been consistent is their inconsistency when it comes to talking about this. They cannot get straight the terms carry, use, possess, and own. They mix them together like they're the same word, and they all have incredibly different meanings legally when it comes to a firearm. And the one article I was reading today, like it talked about drinking and driving, and it's where reason went with it also. That you can't. They don't want you to own a firearm if you use marijuana because you can't drive a car while using alcohol. So, once again, comparing own and use as the same thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think you should carry a firearm if you're drunk either. I don't think firearms and alcohol use mix. I think if you're going to drink, whatever floats your boat, man. But it's time definitely after 1 or 2, it's time to put the firearm in safe storage and have a designated defender that's not you.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, in Georgia, when I was there 2-3 years ago for the Georgia Carry event, I learned, and Georgia's an open carry state, and we were in, the downtown Atlanta open carrying at this event, and at the banquet afterwards, or during the banquet and the reception afterwards, people were drinking with their open carry firearms, and I'm used to Florida where it's concealed carry, and if you drink, nobody knows you have your firearm, so it's never been even a question in my brain. And when I looked at somebody there and asked them about it, and then we looked up the law afterwards, Georgia's very specific. Like, it's okay to have your firearm on you if you're consuming alcohol. So that's possession, which is okay, but you're not allowed to use the firearm if you have alcohol in your system. So they're okay. Just again, how each law and each jurisdiction treats it differently. There you can possess while under, I'm not even going to call it under the influence. Let's say while using alcohol, all right? But they don't want you to use it. So that's okay. So yet the federal government can't get these words correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Next story I got, this one I got off of Yahoo News. You're just going to go ahead and read some of this. This is actually, they with attribution got it from a Fox News article. You can't turn on the news without hearing of a robbery, shooting, or carjacking in cities across America. Concerned citizens are taking protection into their own hands and increasingly seeking concealed carry permits. Despite an estimated 22 million concealed weapon permits as of 2022, concealed carry reciprocity varies state to state, leaving license holders unaware of whether their permits are honored when leaving their home state. Thankfully, Senator Tom Tillis, Republican out of North Carolina, along with 44 of his Senate colleagues, recently introduced the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, which will allow individuals with concealed carry permits in their home state to exercise those rights in any other states that allow concealed carry while still abiding by that state's laws. In other words, if I've got a South Dakota carry permit and I want to go to Connecticut, no big deal. Connecticut will accept the permit, but I've got to abide by Connecticut laws. And that's really, right now, I looked up earlier, my South Dakota permit's accepted in 39 states. That's the way it is with those 39. This would just extend it to the shall not have instead of shall not be infringed states.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of comparative compliance that you'd have to check in, and I know this is one of the reasons why your permit's only valid in 39 because the 11 others say we don't recognize your permit because you don't meet our standards, whether that's a training standard or they have a complete ban on concealed firearms. Those states are just unwilling to give that up, being so anti-gun. They refuse to allow you to carry that firearm there. This would be wonderful, Paul. We've got the full faith and credit clause for everything else we do involving the government. Every permit, every driver's license, your marriage license, divorce license, injunctions. They're all valid from state to state under full faith and credit. Yet the concealed weapons permit or carry permit, whatever you happen to call it, from state to state, is not. And as much as we'd all love to see this happen, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen under this administration at all. It didn't happen under the Trump administration because of Paul Ryan, who was Speaker at the time, because he was offended that Mitt Romney was defeated by Trump, and got the nomination, and Paul Ryan didn't get to be vice president, which is why they never brought forward the reciprocity or the Hearing Protection Act.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and we had that opportunity for 2 years when it was House and Senate and Trump, and we had that opportunity, and anyway, and I'd like to see this go through again. This will never, ever, ever make it as a standalone bill, because Biden will not sign it. As part of the Defense Authorization Act, or as part of the omnibus bill for budget, I could honestly, if it got stuck in there, I could see it. I could see him having to sign it for that.
Yeah, but it wouldn't. They know they can't put this in there. They'd be told that they would lose everything else, that everything else the Republicans would put in, and that they would filibuster and keep it from going through. They're just.
Do you mean the Democrats would shut the government down?
Yeah, they're ideological opposed to anybody being able to defend themselves against their tyranny.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still getting check-ins. And hey, everybody that's checking in over on YouTube and Facebook, if you want to comment on what we're talking about, go for it. We'll get your comments up. Let's go ahead and move on. Vermont, this is not such good news. In a vote that largely fell along party lines, the Vermont House gave preliminary approval Wednesday to a bill that would place new restrictions on gun storage and impose a 72-hour waiting period on gun purchases. The bill, H.230, would also provide a new route for families and household members to petition courts for gun removal as part of an extreme risk protection order. In 3 separate votes, the Democratic majority held together. Notably, support never exceeded a 100-vote veto-proof margin, though several more lawmakers had left by the second vote. Just going to skip down here. And at this time, it's not clear how the courts binding on Vermont will rule on such firearm regulations, and it may not be clear for a while, acknowledged Judiciary Committee Chair Martin Laconde, Democrat out of South Burlington, who spent much of the debate on his feet being questioned. At least they're recognizing Bruin in the legislative process, and that, look, we can pass this. Whether it stands, who knows?
Yeah, again, just a waste of taxpayers, money, right? We're going to go ahead and pass something which we know is probably not going to pass muster, and then we'll let it, go to the courts, and we'll fight it from there, and we'll fight it with state money, and have to raise your taxes to fight for laws that we know are constitutional, but we don't want you to have them. I don't know that this one gets anywhere in Vermont. Once it gets made public, Vermont's a very traditional, old school. Had to concealed, or we had firearms forever without being an issue, but now, as like we see every place else in the Northeast, as New York and Boston continue to grow and reach the rest of New England, bringing their anti-gun rhetoric to states that just want to be left alone and do what they want to do.
Yeah, Vermont is home for Bernie Sanders. I am somewhat surprised they keep sending him, but I don't see, and the governor has said he's not interested in this. I would expect a veto from the governor if this does actually get passed, and we would just have to hold, it's the exact opposite of North Carolina. North Carolina the legislature has passed getting rid of the pistol purchase permit in North Carolina. It's on the governor's desk. He's expected to veto that. The only difference is North Carolina probably has the votes to override the veto. I don't think Vermont has the votes to override the veto for the bills that would reduce our freedoms. Right,
exactly. And for those that try to remember their their high school government and civics class, remember if it gets sent to the governor or to the president and they can veto it, but it still goes back to those chambers, and if those chambers have a 2/3 vote majority, and that's different in some states, but it's uniformly pretty much 2/3. If they have more than a 2/3 majority, they can overturn the veto. So it's not veto proof unless you have that number above or below 2/3.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Last story I got for today, and I like this story. Two reasons. Number one, my House member, Dusty Johnson, is mentioned, but it's also doing something pro-freedom to people. I don't know if they're going to appreciate the pro-freedom they're getting. Native Americans living on tribal land would have an easier time buying firearms under a new bipartisan bill introduced into the House on Wednesday. Small Business Caucus Chairman Rep. Dusty Johnson from South Dakota is reviving his effort from the previous Congress to expand the language on the identification requirements for gun purchases. Under current regulations, tribal IDs are not recognized as a permissible form of identification for those purchases, even though they include most of the same information as DMV-issued driver's licenses. Johnson and Representative Mary Patola, a Democrat out of Alaska, the first Alaskan Native elected to Congress, are jointly sponsoring the legislation. I don't know if you've ever been to a reservation, Mike. Things are, to call them poverty is a vast underestimate. Destitute is very close there. There are people that do not have driver's licenses. There may be their only ID is the tribal ID. Look, as long as it's got a picture, as long as it's got a date of birth and is issued by a governmental organization as the tribe qualifies for, look, it's good enough for me, man. What do you think?
Yeah, first off, what a cool name, right? Dusty Johnson, your representative, right? It sounds like an old, like a 50s cowboy show, On the Trail with Dusty Johnson, you know, the old Western show or something. Paul, I've had the opportunity to visit lots of reservations. Florida has many of them, and 25, 30 years ago, the majority of them were, like you said, destitute and these low poverty areas. But Florida got the casino law passed, and now they kind of put us all to shame. It's like little spots of Vegas all throughout the state. But there are still a couple that don't have it. Down in South Florida, there's one or two. The Mississippi's, I think, are one that I can recall that doesn't have the casinos. They are just that. These are people that have chosen. These are Native Americans that have chosen to continue to live on their reservation. It is, you go look through treaties. It is an independent nation within the United States, but it's also a nation that's relies upon the local economy and everything outside behind it. There's an incredible amount of agreements, government agreements, MOUs, and that kind of stuff back and forth. But they are an independent government organization, and the feds and the states have not taken their IDs for the most part, Paul, because they're not really put together well. I mean, now that we have the domestic security proof. IDs, the real IDs, they don't meet that standard, and I really don't think it was because anybody was intentionally trying to discriminate against Native Americans, but it's Paul, it's the kind of ID you and I could fake with with some scissors and some Scotch tape, and I think that's really where the issue came. I don't know if this means they're going to get better IDs and the feds will fund better IDs for them, or that they're just going to tell the states and that you have to accept these IDs when they're applying for a 4473 to get a permit. That this is what they have and it's legally acceptable. You have to accept it. So I'm curious to see the fine print on this as it starts to go through conference and see what they work out.
Well, at least in South Dakota, the reservations and the counties the reservations are in are the bluest of blue areas in our state.
Right.
And not necessarily politically pro-gun, but I still like what, and you said Dusty Johnson sounds like a cowboy name. I've actually met the man and spoke to him in person, and I have the greatest respect for Dusty Johnson. However, picture in your mind the worst, or not worst, the biggest computer geek you could ever come across in your life. That's Dusty Johnson.
Yeah, see, I'm figuring a bull rider with a big hat and a duster on, but we're going opposite. Got it. Okay.
But I tell you what, when I spoke with him, he is solidly pro 2A and a good guy to have on our side. But yeah, I hope they get it, and I hope they appreciate that what happens when they get it, because part of me years ago, before I became libertarian, part of me would have said, look, if it's what I have to do, why shouldn't you have to do it too?
Right.
Now right. It's like, I shouldn't have to do it, period. Why are we making them do it?
How many people are out there that don't have their driver's license with their home address on it? For whatever reason, if they're military and they're just continuing to move around and don't own property, so they put a P.O. box on it. Or people in public service that don't want their names or their address, home addresses to be searchable. They put P.O. boxes on there. And you can't go and get a firearm with a 4473 with a P.O. box. It's the same kind of thing applies to these members on the reservations who 100% within their right and choice to live on that reservation. And if that reservation doesn't provide that acceptable ID, I don't believe that's a reason to deny them their Second Amendment rights. And I think there needs to be a provision, an exception, exemption, whatever you want to call it, to let them, if they choose to do so, exercise that right.
There is I do remember reporting, I think it was a little over a week ago, reporting on the bullet here that there's a bill in front of the Senate as well that would allow military members and those who live in RVs full time and others who are traveling
right.
To use a P.O. box as a home address for the 4473. I back that as well. I mean, look, if you're military, you could be here for 6 months and then somewhere else for 18 months, coming back for 6 months. And for those that have chosen, especially after COVID, to live in an RV and just travel around, it's certainly cheaper, including gas, certainly cheaper than living in New York City or Los Angeles.
It makes sense. Listen, if that's their home, and it's a mobile home, and they move around the country, how can you have a law that says, sorry, can't have a gun because you don't have a home address? I mean, we've seen homeless rights over this, right? Don't deny me my government services because I don't have an address on my driver's license.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Well, we got a few minutes left. While we're stalling for time, how's permitless carry down there permitless concealed carry in Florida? Went through a little bit of a scare earlier in the week. Where's that sitting now? What's going on?
Yeah, so Florida's got we're one of the 4 states that doesn't have open carry, and it's something that we'd love to have it at some point down here. We could thank Janet Rito from 1986 for making sure that open carry went away from us. But the concealed, the permitless concealed carry is moving its way through the both houses in our state of Florida, and going quite well. Now, there's been a lot of people that have come up there, and it's been majority of the people that have been very pro for this. We've had the antis come up and say, we don't want any kind of gun, and you're going to get that no matter what. But there's been a small contingent on the pro side that have said, we want everything. We want 100%. We want a full constitutional carry. We want open carry, or we're not going to support this. And I believe we've talked about that here before, Paul. Sure. It's just foolish. Nowhere, anywhere in the history of trying to gain back your rights, whether it's been constitutional rights or any other right, can you get everything back 100% all the time? You don't get it all at once. You got to take it back as it was taken from you, and that's the story. How do you eat the elephant, right? One bite at a time. And that's what Florida's doing. It's moving forward. This is a great step. It's been 5-6 years they've been trying to get this brought out of committee, and it's finally done so, and we've got a governor that said he'll sign it. Yet we've had some people, some of these hardcore absolutists that they want it all, and everybody has said tactically, political tactics, listen, get this back now, all right? Get it back now with permitless carry, permitless, concealed carry, and then next year we'll move forward with a few more, additions to it, like, open carry. We just saw this happen in Texas over the past 2-3 years, right, where they move forward one step at a time. They got campus carry, they got open carry, they got everything added to it, and they finally got their constitutional carry. Well, Florida told them the same things. Now, they didn't learn. One of our representatives up there tried to attach an open carry amendment to it, and not only was it immediately shot down, the whole bill was in risk of being shot down. So all it's done now is leave a bad taste in everybody else's mouth that's up there at the Capitol that, you know what, this guy might have just pushed back open carry for years and years and years and put our permitless concealed carry in jeopardy because of this absolutist mentality.
Yeah, it's all or nothing makes no sense. We didn't get from the gun laws of 1933 to where we are today in one shot. I mean, they didn't lop them all off in 1934. It took a long process. And are we going to get back to there? I think, honestly, with the Supreme Court decisions recently, I think we're going to get back to 1791. It's just going to take a while.
It is going to take a while. And you know what? You got to read the room. We've got this new law on our sides, our new case law on our sides. Read the room. We're not going to be able to go in and all at once and get everything back. All that's going to do is put up a bigger wall. Let's take back what we can get back today, and then we'll take back what we can get back tomorrow. But let's do it one day at a time here.
Amen. Well, on our way out the door, man, tell us about Arms Room Radio. Tell us about the rundown and anything else you want to plug today, man.
Yeah, let's see. Arms Room Radio has been on the air for we're in our 9th year now. We're working on our 9th year. It's a weekly program, comes to you 3 to 5 p.m. Saturdays Eastern Time. You can catch us at armsroomradio.com or on one of the 25 or so stations we're on. You get a list of those over at our website. And then Mr. Craig DeLuz and I do the rundown daily at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's a couple of guys just like this sitting around talking about topics of the day. And the rundown, we go a little more conservative. We step outside the 2A arena, and I guess people are interested in hearing what we have to say or watching me embarrass myself telling people my opinion. They keep tuning in. I don't know what they see, but we're thankful for them.
Have they learned how to pronounce your last name correctly yet?
I haven't learned how to pronounce my last name correctly. There's no way for them to pronounce it correctly.
All right. Well, folks, that is going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. We're going to shut it down. Please do come join me tomorrow. It's Legal Friday with Alex Uli. We'll be talking about the legal decisions of the week in the Second Amendment arena. That's it for today, everybody.